every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
EMI Apparel, encourage me, I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading EMI, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIYTV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good afternoon, and we're entering a very serious topic this morning, this evening, this afternoon, today. Welcome to Put Your Family First podcast. We have a stranger going to be beamed in real soon. I think there she is. She's translating. She's translating. That's not the way. Directly behind me. There we go.
All right.
Yes, she's translating into. And welcome to today's topic. We're in part 4. We're talking marriage, life, happiness, tutti frutti, and all the things that come with it. And I think we're talking the topics. We're going to tap into the strongholds and some other things today. We got a special guest in the building who slid in like Michael Jackson on the Beat It video. Maad, what's happening? Maad Sabat is in the building.
Hello,
there
hello.
We go. There
Hello.
we go.
Like the royal wave.
There we go. Yeah, it's in the building. What's up, Doc?
Can she hear us?
People.
Oh, there we go. I was about to say, yeah, she ain't there. I can hear.
And Brother Dave?
Yeah, everything's good. Still standing.
That's right. So I guess we're gonna jump into this conversation. Marriage, mates, and meaningful connections. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it means, but I guess we're gonna find out sooner or later. So, how's everybody's day been?
Pretty good. No complaints.
Productive.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. Yes.
Active.
Okay, that's what's up. So we ready to roll? You ready to kick this quad game off today?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get it popping.
Right. Well, I wanted to frame our conversation, and as we look at and listen through this conversation, how do we move to solutions? And I want you guys to just have this, the answer, or ponder this question as I'm sharing some of the stats and information that I found to help frame this conversation. So what I want you to give some thought to that is going to kick off our conversation today is your personal 3 most important views on family and marriage. So your 3 most important views on family and marriage, because as we talk about, moving through the end of this year, we have an opportunity for a fresh start every day. We also have an opportunity for a fresh start to a new year. And so all the things that we're sharing today will help shape and frame us for how we can look at a different outcome for 2025 than we had in 2024. And that's for us and our listeners. So I want to share some stats from the opposite points of view, looking at it from divorce to see what we can do to avoid divorce and all the ramifications that come to that. So I thought these particular issues were really pertinent and relevant. They talk about the top 6 causes of divorce. And so within those, it was some nuggets that I thought was worthy of sharing. So the first, and this is from a Psychology Today article, which is one of the places that I like to go for my research because it's a fact check that goes along with the articles that they write. So I'm going to give you the top 6 causes of divorce. The first one they say is cheating and infidelity. The second one is spending money foolishly. The third one is drinking or other drug or substance abuse. The fourth one says jealousy. The fifth one says moodiness. And the sixth one says irritating habits. So I thought those were really interesting causes for divorce. So I'm going to tell you just a couple of highlights from each one of them. It said for cheating and infidelity, it said the psychological studies show that it's not just infidelity, it's not about the physical act, but it's really about the breach of emotional commitment and the integrity, which is critical for sustaining a healthy relationship. So it's the bond is broken, not necessarily just the vow is broken. The bond that holds your trust is broken. It talks about spending money foolishly. It said this also goes beyond financial stability. It also reflects deeper issues of respect, communication, and mutual goals within the relationship. So it's not just that a person is spending money maybe without consulting, but it is respecting the boundaries that you set in those relationships. So I thought that was another important key under, we talk about the financial issues and financial instability. And so the third one is the substance abuse or drinking and or smoking, and included marijuana in here too. It says substance abuse disorders can alter behaviors, impair your judgment, and lead to emotionally unstable people. Or so that's for yourself or for your partner. So not just the act of using it, but what it does to the person and their thinking process. I thought that was another critical view to look at when we talk about substance abuse, or we talk about the abuse of marijuana and or other drugs. The fourth one is jealousy, and it talks about excessive jealousy reflects an underlying issue of low self-esteem, the fear of abandonment, which is going to speak to our 5 strongholds, unresolved trauma, and also it can lead to obsessive thoughts, accusations, and trying to control your partner. And so I know we've seen a lot of these types of things too in relationships, especially that lead to divorce. Number 5 is moodiness. And it says when one partner's mood fluctuates and dominates the relationship dynamic, it can leave the other person feeling emotionally neglected or on edge. It can contribute to feelings of dissatisfaction and ultimately break down the harmony in your relationship. And that was moodiness. And the last one is irritating habits. It says what may start as mild annoyances can escalate into frequent arguments or emotional distances if left unaddressed. So those little things that, at the beginning of your relationship that you might think is cute or that you may feel is not a big deal, but you never talk through it or talk about it or come up with alternate solutions, can also undermine your relationship. So I thought those 6 things were really surprising, in addition to what they represent, but the deeper meaning or the deeper impact up under them.
So who was it written by?
The article?
Yes.
So the source is Psychology Today. It is written by, I'm sorry, that's the reviewer. I don't have the person's name up here. I just have the reviewer right now.
Okay. And the reviewer, what is the reviewer's name?
The reviewer's name is Devere Seals.
Okay. Okay. The reason why I asked, right? Because in those same studies, remember, finance was number one at one point. That the financial infidelity was number one at one point. So
And it's no longer number one.
Well, that's why I asked who the writer was. So that's good. So where do you want to go? Number one.
Is our personal 3 most important views on marriage and family.
So my aunt is the lady at the table in the building. We'll start with you.
Okay, what is it you want to know?
Or 3.
Your 3 most important views on marriage and family.
Communication. If you don't have good communication, you have nothing. Because all of those other issues are a result of 2 people not being able to communicate, either with each other or with like not willing to speak to a counselor or someone to get some type of help or assistance. So it would be communication. The second one would be, I want to say sacrifice. What you're willing to sacrifice in relationships. When you deal with other people, you have to deal with everything that comes along with them. Their issues, their situations, and everything. So there might be times that you don't want to make certain choices, but you sacrifice to make those choices for the good of the family or the relationship. And you have to have enough love even to be able to do that. The third would probably be, I don't know if you would count this, but I think it's really important to not judge, especially when it comes to your children, and not judging people for the choices that they make. When you're in a relationship, usually people keep track of things that somebody has done wrong, and then they throw it in their face at some point in time when you get into arguments. So if you don't judge a person for their walk, because they could judge you for yours, if you don't judge a person for their walk and try and be more understanding, empathetic towards that, and learn how to communicate with each other, I think that'll resolve a lot of problems. So that's my 3.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, Heather, what are yours?
I'll go last.
You're the lady in the building.
I'm actually outside of the building.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think for me, the first is creativity. I think it's important for us to be able to use our imaginations, to be able to use the talents and the gifts that we have, whether it's in our families, to take advantage of that, to lift those things up, because it helps to build the person up. I know one of the issues, or the 6 that cause trauma to a relationship or cause an injury in a relationship, has to do with self-esteem. All of us have a unique blueprint, and I think our creativity is one of the ways that we offer that. And it also keeps things fresh, and it makes people feel valuable, that they have something important to bring. So I think first is creativity. The second one is forgiveness. You have to have enough forgiveness to be able to look at a person and, again, what they have, the information that they have that they're working with, or the knowledge that they have when they're working with, or the decisions that they're working with. It may not be the appropriate one or the best one at the time, but it's the one that they made. And so being able to forgive and not hold it to cause harm to the person or to yourself, not taking it so personal that it's too big to forgive. So I think that needs to be another important part of family and marriage. And then finally is kind of accepting people as where they are, accepting them as an individual, accepting their beliefs, accepting their practices, and learning how to work together to understand them and to bring them together to strengthen the family or strengthen the marriage. Those would be my three.
Okay. Brother Dave?
I think that, well, for me, it'd be very difficult because each one of the points that the young ladies brought out are contributing factors to a relationship. But I guess if I had to pick three off the top of my head, the first one would be openness. And the reason I say openness is because you have to be open with yourself, honest with yourself, to be able to communicate with somebody else. So if you're restricted in your mindset and your ideals of seeing the world, it limits you from being able to communicate with other people effectively, as she talked about communication. The second would be trust. But again, you have to be open enough to be able to build trust. So it's important that you develop a trusting foundation. And I guess the last one would be faithfulness to that. What I find, again, is as you were presenting those key factors that seem to damage relationship, and then Calvin mentioned that verse was finance, you can see that these things fluctuate as relationship fluctuates because people fluctuate. We're consistent about being inconsistent, but we're not too consistent being consistent on those things we say we value because there's too many factors come into play. But I think if we strive to be faithful to ourselves and our own development of who we are, and we bring that to the table. Like I like to say, I'm constantly spending time working on me. I spend 6 months minding my business, 6 months leaving yours alone. That's 365 for me to develop me. Then you become a recipient of the work that I've done that is positive, so we can work together. But if I'm not open enough to share those things, we don't have a trusting relationship, and we're not faithful to the cause of building a relationship, marriage, family will all break down.
Okay. So, my three, I'm going to say care. I think caring is a very big component to the endurance of a marriage. Being able to care, listen, evaluate, process emotions, particularly for us men, we have to do a considerable amount of that in our principles, guiding, understanding, leadership. So care is one. Trust is another, because trust is it's a continuous building process. You're constantly building trust over time. And for me, three is laughter. Regardless to all the ups and downs, the bumps and the bruises, if we can no longer laugh, for me, those are three components, because laughter allows your marriage to last longer. Laughter allows you to have a healthy intake in relationships and perspective. Laughter allows you to endure some of your tough times, because you got a whole bunch of laugh and enjoyment stacked up, so you can get through some things, because laughter brings that happiness, peace in place, right? And so the trust, the care, the trust, and the laughter are the three most important pieces for me, because everything else can happen. And to add on to the word meaningful, what brings meaning, right? I mean, because we can get into, communication and all, but if I actually care about the person, I'll listen. If I actually trust the person, I kind of will endure. And if I can laugh with the person, that means I have a healthy friendship, relationship, in order to endure. Because a lot of times those things are not at the table. And the first 6 things you talked about divorce, they won't even get there. So,
Yeah, and that's really one part of the insight in the research is that at different stages of life, they talk about the impact of the divorce rates. And so we're using divorce as kind of our benchmark to look at how do we avoid getting to divorce. So what are some of the things that help us avoid the path to divorce? So the next question for us to consider and to respond to are how do we create meaningful connections? What are some of the ways that we can create those meaningful connections? Like if you have some examples of ways maybe in your relationships, because all of us have been married at one point, what were some of the ways you created meaningful connections in your marriage relationship?
Ma?
Everybody looks at me. Okay. In a marriage, meaningful relationship, you have to take time with each other. And if you have to set a schedule, sometimes it's hard when you have children, but you literally have to set a schedule or make a date with each other to spend time. And because when you get stuck in the grind of life and dealing with problems and things like that, then you put each other on the back burner. It's not necessarily intentional, but it does happen. But you have to make each other's your one-on-one time a priority. And if it means a date night, then it means a date night. And you stick to it no matter what. Even if your plans change and you decide you want to go out to dinner, or something happens, one of the kids gets sick. Okay, well then stay home and make a little picnic in your room. You know, there's creative things that you could do to spend time with each other. Stop. So, you know, it's when you see that your relationship or communication is going a little left, seek wise counsel from somebody, whether it's a family member, an elder, your religious leader, pastor, whoever, a friend. Notice I said wise counsel. Not just talking to anybody, your girls or your boys who are in the same position or worse than you are. They don't have the capacity to counsel you. So seeking wise counsel when you notice things are going outside of your control. Those, I think, are really important. And stay the person that you fell in love with. Like, again, stuff in life sets in, and then you turn into somebody different. Us women, I don't know about men, but I know us women, we get comfortable, and so you start going to sleep with the bonnet on and the big pink rollers or all those types of things. And, there's times, and that's fine because you're tired, I get it, but also keep the fire in your life. Don't always come to bed with the rollers in your hair. Be okay with getting your hair getting messed up if it comes down to it. Yeah. But, keep fire and creativity. As you said, keep the creativity in your life and always build up communication. If you notice your mate is acting some kind of way, maybe they're upset about you about something. And instead of acting like that doesn't exist, stop and say, what's wrong? Let's talk. And you don't proceed until you get that out of the way, because you argue with your husband because he didn't take the garbage out. That's not what you're arguing about. You're arguing about something else that never got resolved. So resolve that so you won't have arguments in the first place. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Dave?
I was waiting on Heather. I'm a soldier, so everything falls into place, follow routine.
Yeah.
All right. I concur what Ma said, because that's important, creativity, and bringing that to the table so you can create the fire. I think another thing is the art of sitting down and spending quality time with each other. Too often we don't do that. And as she said, we can be creative, make our picnic in the bedroom, but that bedroom should be out of the bedroom every day. And I think that when you get into a marriage, that person should be, as you said earlier about sacrifice, that person should become your priority. You should rise up. I used to say this, that if I woke up every morning telling my wife and asking her, what do you want me to do for you? And she looked at me and said, what do you want me to do for you? That means that the two people are willing to give, so they become two recipients. Mm-hmm. But if I'm looking for you to turn around and do for me, then it's like Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? You're always looking for something, but you're not willing to plant the seed to get that harvest. So we have to be willing to release ourselves to give to someone else. So that sacrifice is important. I think the other part is that to sit down and define things. I really believe that people don't take the time to define their meaning. We all got words about love, intimacy. We discussed that yesterday at church, intimacy. And, some people even say, I don't even know what intimacy is because, again, they're seeing it from one dimension, maybe a physical intimacy. But there's a spiritual, there's emotional, there's a mental. And we as couples need to sit down and discuss these meanings. That's why I always say, you don't need no TV, you don't need no radio, you don't need none of that. All you need is each other to sit down and talk because you have thousands of thoughts running through your head. And sometimes those thoughts have an attack on you. So you need to have someone, as I said about trust, that you can sit down and share those thoughts. As you said, without judgment. Or let's put it like this, without critical judgment. You're going to make a judgment about it. But you're not criticizing, you're trying to understand. And that spending that quality time helps you to get to understand the person. It's just like God. If you don't spend time with God, you don't understand God. You know of him, but you don't know about him. So, we need to spend that quality time.
So for me, it's being able to enjoy yourselves apart, understanding that you might have a hobby or something special that you like, and you having respect for that. I think a lot of times in relationships, we get into the relationships and people start out with 24 hours a day, neglecting themselves and the things that was attractive to the mate. And so you're not doing this, or you don't go here no more, or you don't on Thursdays go bowling with the guys, or you start putting all your focus into the one person. That becomes suffocation. Because sometimes in relationships, the missing you part is the intimacy part. It's the did you go here today? I'm glad you came home when you walked through the door. So I think a lot of times we place a real heavy emphasis on how much time we do spend together, but then after a while, when you've given up the things that made you who you were, I kind of think it becomes counterproductive. So you got to always have something that makes you who you are, that keeps your attraction. For me, it might be football or going over my man's crib. For my wife, it's red hats and meeting with the ladies and those things, right? It's some of those things that you have to create space for them to have their space. Another thing that we touched on and I touched on last week, it's most definitely the touch. It's important, and touch means before you leave, when you come home, what is the welcoming? If I'm coming through the door, touch is your spirit. Even when I walk through the door, hey honey, right? It's all of those things that keeps us in the fire. In a relationship, from a perspective, in a historical perspective, it's in the morning. I'm the guy that gets up in the morning laughing to take the kids to school. Everybody is not in a great mood in the morning, right? But me, I'm full of jokes and all kind of things early on, and so it's accepting your differences while coming together that builds the endurance that is needed. Those are my three.
So for me, as I think about meaningful connections, I think our history is really important. Our family history, knowing about a person's traditions, upbringing, uh, creating those spaces of creating your own traditions, especially as a family and as a couple. What are some of the things that we do that we can look forward to? So some people, for at least in my family, we had a Christmas Eve tradition, and that Christmas Eve tradition is something that I carried into my adulthood because it was something that was meaningful to me. So for my mate to understand that this is a meaningful time for me, and this is the tradition that we have that I grew up to embrace and now embrace as an adult, and I want to share in that, and I want that person to share it with me, but I also want to share in those traditions. Maybe it's the whole Super Bowl weekend for him, and this is the tradition that he, grills, and he has friends over, and it's all of this conversation. So I think part of that is understanding the person's history and creating those traditions and meaningful moments together so that there is some value between your past and your present and how you want to move together and build in the future. So I think that is important for meaningful connection. So I wanted to talk about the strongholds, the 5 strongholds, and have us really look into this a little bit deeper, how it affects us as individuals and what you've seen with other people and how they handle it. So I'm going to list the strongholds first. So there are 5 of them. The first one is control. The second one, this is no particular order. The second one is pride. The third is distraction. The fourth is rejection. And the fifth is abandonment. I'll give them to you again. Control, pride, distraction, rejection, and abandonment. And so these are strongholds that are triggers that have affected us based on some things either in our childhood. Most of it begins in the childhood, is seeded in your childhood, but it starts to expand and grow with you as an adult, even if the healing process doesn't grow with you.
Well, I think we're gonna have
So
to come with the 5 love holes too after we get through
the
this
love
process.
languages,
The 5 love holes.
the love languages,
No, we know the love languages. We're gonna create the 5 love holes. Hold your hand. We go through that process. But in the meantime, the 5 strongholds. I think I'll jump in there to kick this off.
and you can pick one or you can go with all of them. Which
For
one
me,
stands out for you?
For me, the one that stood out was distractions. Allowing distractions and allowing a space for me as a man to be distracted. Creating excuses around the distractions of me being distracted really can catapult you into the space and manipulation where you always got to be right. Right, and then that leads right into control, right, and all those other things. But for me, it's the distractions. What are the distractions? Are they heavy distractions, which falls into the area where you have I think it was number 5 or 6 on the list, where you had the issues around I forget what it was, because I'm in my 50s. You forget a lot later, right? But
Just wait.
right. So in the process, right? In that process, for me, it's really the distractions, because the distractions can really pull you and get a hold of you and turn you into something that you most definitely gonna need a therapist or a coach to get out of.
So Calvin, as you think about that, can you think about where that might have been seeded in your childhood? Where did it show up in your childhood where certain distractions, and distractions are sometimes presented as choices.
I'm
So
gonna see the
do
two
this,
Virgos.
say this, or
So
again.
I'm gonna see the two Virgos. That's a distraction in itself. My mother and father was a Virgo. Both creative, both talented. Right? It's a lot.
Do you think that's where it came from? Distractions?
It's easy for me to blame them, so sure. You know what I mean? I can blame them. I can make them the excuse, but I think it's I think it falls under parenting when you're not around to cultivate the seeds. Things manifest on their own without that cultivation, and that becomes a distraction. I mean, it's for me. You didn't see it. You've seen it. You see all the solutions and all the creativity and the ideas, and you see it all. And I'm sure that's where it comes from, right? But it's how do you hone that in? And so distractions are. Remember, we learned this. Distractions don't have to be bad. You have good distractions. You have the distractions that come in that say, "Hey, you can be a millionaire if you do this." And you're like, "That'd be easy." There's a distraction. Yeah, you can. It could be a distraction just from your friend calling you, inviting you on your way to take care of something. Your friends call you and invite you to something else, and it's good for you. Yeah, come on over here. We having barbecue.
Okay.
We know how you are about barbecue, so you're like, I'm going over here to get the barbecue. See, so we understand that distractions can be a good thing. So for me, it's distractions.
Okay. My hot day?
You said control, right?
Yes.
Okay. Control, I think, is a big one. Control comes in when one or both of the people have not done their inner work. It's reflective of their level of maturity. And if you vet the person that you're going to be in a relationship with, there'll be certain red flags that you'll get almost immediately. A lot of times people don't pay attention to those because they want what they want. But that comes with a cost. So it's wise when you're talking about getting into a relationship that's going to have permanency to it, which would be marriage, then you have to start looking at things, everything with a very serious eye. How is this person around their friends? How were they with their previous mates? Are they still friends with their previous mates? How does their family get along? How do they interact with other people? Do they try and control you and what you do, where you go, who you talk to, what you buy, what you wear? Those are all flags that are so red that you run. Again, if assuming you have not committed to the marriage to go to that level, but if you're in it and you start to notice that a person is being controlling, then again you want to seek wise counsel. There's something that their wounds are coming back up, or a trigger, something that triggered maybe something in their past. They could have even forgotten that happened, or they just never chose to deal with it, and it's coming up now and they have to deal with it. So if that's the case and you're already married, then again, you seek wise counsel. You can try and have the discussion between the two of you. But if something that's beyond your level or capacity to be able to resolve it, then you need to go and try and find someone to assist you with it. But trying to control someone is it's the precursor for disaster. And again, it's reflective of their mental, emotional, and spiritual maturity. And everyone's growing. It's just that you grow at different levels. Now, you might be outgrowing your significant other. Does that mean to leave them? No. Because there's levels that they're growing faster than you. So when you get into a relationship, you're going down the same road together, but you're on two different sides of the street. And you have to. There's a poem that I got, and it's called "I Love You Enough to Let You Go." And truly loving someone is wanting the best for them, even if it's not you. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that in a relationship where you can love a person where they're at, but still maintaining your identity, still maintaining your individuality and everything about you, and not allowing anybody to take that from you. Because people that are controlling, they're going to do that. They want to take everything from you. They want to remove you away from your support system. All of the symptoms are the same, and every controlling person's relationship is the same. And you have to make a choice yourself about what that's going to look like for you. So I can go on forever with the control thing, but I'll stop there.
Dave, how about you?
Yeah, could you repeat them one more time? Because I'm running them in my head, but as you say, a little further back in the file cabinet, just that quick.
Control, pride, distraction, rejection, and abandonment.
Yeah. Again, I would always refer back to self-awareness because each one of those particular points you brought out, usually you will see that in just about any marriage you encounter. People don't want to be rejected. They don't want to be abandoned. They don't want to be controlled. And it just plays itself out. And so as you sit down and you start to ask yourself the question, how do one be able to maintain their self-awareness and who they are and what they're about? You have to go deep inside yourself. And most people are not willing to look into the mirror that way. That's why they will try to maintain that control over you, because they don't want to deal with themselves. Mm-hmm. Many people feel rejected because of the fact they're insecure and they haven't developed that level of maturity, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, to be secure within themselves. And, nobody wants to be abandoned, but, a lot of times that just comes with the turf, that something you're going to define as being abandoned is not really abandonment. Maybe it's just not rejection, it's selection. But if we don't sit down and communicate about this, then these factors will come into play. And if you be honest, how many people have sat down in their relationship and talked about these strongholds and then begin to try to work on them as an individual first, and then to work together on this? So all these factors will come into play. But I found that many people are trying to control other people because they're out of control with themselves. Mm-hmm. Once you become secure with yourself, you don't need to control nobody else. Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you're taking the position of passivity. You just understand that some things just don't have that much value, especially when you're trying to control another person's value. And these things come into play when you don't have the ability to sit down and communicate with one another about these issues. This is why this show is so amazing, and this topic is amazing, because I've counseled enough people. I've sat with enough people. I've listened to people, and I've listened to myself in my own relationships, and I've seen that all these factors come into play. So again, I'll still go back to the same point. We will always deal with these issues if we don't address them within ourselves before we even begin to deal with someone else.
A lot of people don't know. You have to remember, a lot of people, to the very topic that we're discussing, literacy, a lot of people don't know.
That's right.
Right? My question to, because my aunt said something that was key, and when she said, in terms of maturity, right? A lot of people are able to hide behind words the immaturity and commitment. My ability to commit to someone is completely camouflaged in a distraction behind these words, right? A lot of people can't get to the 5. Right? It's very, very significant in relationships when you don't have enough information. How you argue, what you know is limited in your literacy.
That's right.
This is why this is such an important topic as well. Marriage is a commitment of words, deeds, and actions. If I say that I'm going to, then I do. So we negate that part in the strongholds as well. Go ahead, Doc.
So I would talk about pride. You know, we hear often that there's the angry black woman or the strong black independent woman. Some of that language is developed from cultivating a mindset, a prideful mindset, a prideful spirit, a prideful personality where you feel like you can't ask for help because you're concerned about how somebody is going to look at you, how it's going to impact your status or your standing as an individual. Does it take away from who I am and my sense of power and my sense of self? And again, those things are often rooted in our backstory, in our childhood. And so the more that we address those things, and they show up in particular ways too. The issue of pride shows up where it's difficult to ask for help, and it's also difficult to receive help. There's some women who may experience, and this is a simple example. There's a man that walks up and opens the door for you, and you may say, "I don't need you to open the door for me. Or I can open the door for myself." That's not the point. It is allowing somebody to do something for you, even if you can do it for yourself. It's sharing the responsibility, it's sharing the space, it's sharing a social grace. Because maybe that man was raised that way, and this is how he is sharing his respect, or he's sharing his appreciation, or even just being a chivalrous man. We have to also understand with pride that other people are connected to our choices and decisions. Sometimes it's our children are affected. Sometimes it's the mate that's affected. Sometimes it's ourselves. Like we're taking away from ourselves when we are so prideful that we can't do or see something different, or do or see something a different way that maybe somebody else has suggested. Your way is always the best way, the right way, or the only way. That's how you also know that you may be suffering from a sense of pride. And so keeping your mind open and your heart open to be receptive, that you don't have to do it alone. We were never created to do everything alone. And so because we are a communal people, in terms of our culture, we are a communal people. So that means there's always going to be either a need for someone else, or someone else is going to need you. And so being more open and receptive in that space and in those spaces, especially when it's important, that we have to keep that and keep an open mind and not let the pride or our past history be the sole reason that we make this choice or we make this decision. We need each other. And the more that we build on that and build appreciation for that, the more we can overcome those issues of pride.
You gotta go back to the bushes.
One of the things I wanted to inject, when you talk about pride, it also spills into the other four, because again, it still goes back to that element of control. Most people who have the high level of pride, like you said, I can open the door myself. Okay, you need a sense of control. And that's not, as you said, that's not the point why they're holding the door. Mm-hmm. It's no different if an elder person was going in and it was two women. And she said, well, I'll hold the door because I can get it myself. Because now pride jumps back into play again because I need my independence. Can't let you take that from me. So we have to look at these issues that we call the strongholds to put in perspective how they're affecting us across the board, because each one of them will eventually tap in to the problems that we have in our relationships.
Yeah, it goes without saying, when you get into, I guess that's why we call them strongholds, but there are many other things, as number 6 pointed out, or 7, jealousy falls in there. The Oriental process of teaching respect at an early age also goes into a solution. Respect is, when I was singing, going back to the bushes, because even in those days, respect was at play, and they had formats, and they had their people and their community. I personally look at this in terms of this conversation, in terms of not just an important one, but what we shared in here today, in a calm format and understanding, is very important to the viewer, right? When we're talking, put your family first. And the information we've shared over these last 4 episodes, if you applied just 2 out of 4, it would make an impact in your relationships, in your home, with your family, with your spouse, right? These are things that I think a lot of times we misconstrue. Before we do so, we'll start with your last take, and you got a minute to tell everybody where they can reach you at.
My website is relationshipfirstaid.com. The email address is relationshipfirstaid@yahoo, and first is spelled out FIRST. Facebook, same thing, Relationship First Aid, and Instagram, Relationship First Aid.
Okay. Brother Dave, your last take in there?
Last take on it. Well, I just continue to say that these sessions have been amazing, because they bring about thought-provoking views that we may have kind of put to the side. But if we begin to exercise some of these views and begin to go deep, again, you get a license to get married, but they don't take you to no major training. And the other thing, police officers, doctors, everybody goes to some training. This is training. Again, this is how you prepare yourself for a relationship. So you can reach me at drom7@yahoo.com, or you can reach me at FMAM David Patterson on Facebook.
Heather, Dr.
You can reach me at yourinspiredjourney.com. That's yourinspiredjourney.com. You can reach me by phone at 313-759-7855.
Saturday, I sat in on a men's conversation. As I sat in the room, there were men all in the room, and they were talking, what we normally hear today, about things that they should do. It was in scripture, the whole nine. And so when it came around, I said, out of everything that we talk about when it comes to marriage, in some way, in my opinion, the church has failed, the people has failed, pastors have failed, friends have failed to share what a vow really means. Mm-hmm. Numbers 30 verse 2 said, everything that comes out of a man's mouth he must do. But Numbers 30 takes you through the process for her and what the vow really means. Now, if we were doing premarital counseling and we said, this vow that you're taking, how serious is this vow? We've failed in this area, understanding what that really means. If I take your hand as a vow and I get into this conversation and I go through these scriptures just right here, it brings a lot more meaning to the marriage. But that's not what we're doing. And so that is just one of the key components why marriages are suffering, or marriages for the families that thrive. Marriages are thriving because they understand the importance of the vow. She understands and he understands. Comes back to the pilot and the co-pilot. Where are we going to go? What is our adventure? How far are we going to make it? What is we going to do to endure forever? What does that look like? What obstacles? We going to laugh at each other in diapers when we get older? Right? Or are we going to pretend like we don't wear diapers and I despise you for peeing in your diaper, right? These things shape the vow, the endurance, the forever. So we need to understand, and a lot of us, we just are not understanding the purpose of a marriage. And so, yeah, you would have these strongholds. And I suggest any and everybody that's out there, look into Numbers 30. Read Numbers, the whole chapter, for you to understand what you're getting into, right? The other thing that was said about when women speak from where they are and pride and things like, because a lot of times they didn't have a father that didn't show them, right? Like Maat had a father. Heather had a father that showed them an idea of what it should somewhat look like for you to have this person that you can reference. Too many times, what do? We put the child, mothers, listen up. We put the child, studies show, when the spouse are first and the children are second, you get to raise your children versus having to raise your grandchildren. When you put the children before the spouse, you then are entitled with having to raise the grandchildren. When your children are more important than the spouse, it's hard to build the bridge of endurance and forever. A friend of mine, as I spoke, they haven't had a divorce in their families in 90 years. Her brother-in-law was on drugs and everything for years. Wife stood right by. 7 to 10 years of drug abuse. And they are happily married today. She didn't throw it away. We got to get to a place as people and culture for us to understand. As the video showed, only 34% of the culture is married. We have to change. My name is Calvin, Dr. Calvin T. Mann. You can reach me at calvintman.com. This has been Put Your Family First podcast. I'm looking forward to the first Monday of the new year. When we come out, we're going to come out swinging. And right? And I'm going to leave you with this one. You have to understand this. And I really want you to think about this. What will it take for you to be married? Peace.